Welcome back, you guys. Thank you so much for joining us. If you've been a long-time viewer, welcome back to the channel. If you're new to the channel, I'm Dustin, here with Kevin.
What's up, guys?
And we're gonna show you guys some things about glass blowing, kind of what we do and hang out. Welcome to the channel.
This week, we are finishing off this headpiece for the grand finale of season 2 here. It's pretty exciting.
This was so fun. And I really like the way it turned out with the horns flowing, and we got the signature Marini on the bottom.
Got the matching wigwag bowl. You know, it all fits together real nice.
Yeah. Well, we had fun making it. I hope one of you guys enjoy having it.
Drop a comment down below. We're going to be picking from all 3 of the finale videos. So question, comment, something like that. And in 2 weeks, we'll pick the winner.
Yep, we'll have a video for you guys in 2 weeks. And speaking of that, in the off season, Kevin and I are working on a few surprise videos for you guys. We're gonna need to take some time off, not too long, to kind of recalibrate for season 3. But don't worry, there'll be some content coming out for you guys.
Totally, get some more demos ready and in the books for you.
Speaking of, let us know what you want to see in season 3 in the comments, for sure.
Totally. We had an awesome class with Cool Hand Suze this past weekend. It was so great to see her, and she taught an awesome lathe class.
Yeah, it was so fun to see Suze and work with her again. I mean, she's one of my favorite people, so thank you, Suze, really, from the bottom of our hearts. We really enjoyed it. Thank you for all you students who came and enjoyed the Saturday with us. We had a really good time, and that's actually available if you missed it on the online school.
Totally, go on there and you can watch that for 30 days.
Yep. And we do these other projects too, so if you're a member of the online school or you'd like to join, there's a free trial now. And you know, these are some of the projects: a donut, donut
fun.
pipe,
Very nice.
little vases and things like that.
A little more color fade action on that one, I see.
Yeah, we went a little deeper into the color fade on the online school that we were doing on the torch. So yeah, I'd love to see you guys there. It's a great community, and there's a free trial. See if you like it, and you know, I'll see you there.
Totally. I wanted to thank our sponsor, Mountain Glass Arts. It's been so awesome. They have made season 2 possible. And they are the best spot to get your glass, your tools, your color, whatever you might need for glass blowing.
Yeah, and Kevin and I take a lot of consideration in the sponsorship position. We really wanted to work with Mountain Glass because that's literally the best place. Like, it's not just the place, the good place, a place that we like. It is actually the best place because it has the best customer service. The guys are experts there. And for you guys who are students, or even if you're just watching the video, tell them that you saw this in the video and they'll actually give you a little discount too.
Nice, very cool. Thanks as always to Mountain Glass Arts.
Thank you so much, Mountain Glass Arts. Let's do it. You want to get in the studio and make this thing? Finish it off?
Yeah, exactly. Finish the assembly and show you guys how it all comes together.
All right, guys, come on, let's get in there and do it.
All right, so you've got that joint you were working on last time, and you just slipped a piece of 1/10,000th stainless steel in there to act as a little shim.
Yeah, you can get that at this place called McMaster Car. That's the place I ordered it from online. It's a competitor to Granger. Granger may have it too.
Yeah, it's like an industrial supply company.
Yeah.
So you just use that to hold that ground joint in there, and you've got a nice long handle on there, and you're going to do a little bridging to keep this steady while you work on your seal.
So what I'm trying to accomplish here is that really smooth connection and seal from the black to the color, and because of the way that I attached it, it was off axis. I couldn't really go in there and really get that seal as good as I wanted. So this way I'm going to make the bridge and put it in the kiln and go around there, and it'll really be able to smooth out, get nice and even.
And you can see we're really talking about, you know, how's this going to attach to the piece, you know, or maybe bend it a little more, you know. It's a good time to mess with it kind of while you get it out of the kiln like that. Don't want to be taking it in and out, back and forth necessarily.
Yeah, so the making a piece this big, just for me anyway, takes a lot of time and I guess in between looking at it and then deciding what goes next. Some people maybe draw out every piece, and that's definitely a great way to work, and sometimes that's the way, but for this one we want to kind of improvise and build it as we went.
Totally. So you're just making sure the handle was cool enough there to grab close by the mouthpiece, and you're going to open up a hole in the side to insert the perk.
Yeah, you want to be careful to make this the right size. You don't want your perk flare to slip in there. You want to just kind of catch, and that way you create as little glass as possible for between the perk and then either the stem or the joint or whatever's coming next.
Right. You don't want like a big overlap with your
Yeah.
perk flare kind of flopping out over your can, because it's going to be very hard to get that to the same wall thickness as
Exactly.
the rest of your can.
Exactly.
Almost the exact same size. And boom, slipped right in there. Look at that.
Yep, and there we go.
And so now it's in there. Of course, it's not straight yet, but you're going to kind of start to weld it in place, and then you can straighten it out.
Yeah, once you get it in there, you attach all the sides. So I'm going to go one side to the next, push it down with my torch, and then seal that whole thing in there. And it's going to get a little bit off center, but once it's all sealed in there, I'll be able to get it on center.
And that's why you're using your mini torch here and holding it so the gravity is keeping that perk at relatively centered, right?
Yep.
Be better than using your bench torch and it's flopping all over the place.
Yeah, and I'm also moving the piece around with gravity to try to keep that on center as well.
Using the reamer there to help a little bit. I think I need to make that stand for your mini torch there, Dustin. It keeps being a little dangerous on that marver.
I'm ready. I think that's a good idea.
Season 3, here it comes.
All right, so sealing that up in there and just making sure that there's no indentations or little creases, because this area, it really could cause a crack later if you leave a crease and then try to seal a stem or a joint on there. It's already a lot of tension as it is making that seal.
Right, using that annealing flame on there after you work that in with the mini torch and the sharper flame to kind of help get that stress out before you put it in the kiln.
So my blow tube boot was stuck on there, so as opposed to messing around with it when it was out of the kiln, I just removed the swivel and left the boot on the piece, and then once the piece was safe in the kiln, then I removed my boot, as opposed to trying to do all that when the piece is hot outside of the kiln.
Right, with that potentially sketchy seal there. Not sketchy, but high stress seal.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's always good to get it in the kiln as quick as you can.
Absolutely. A lot of people in the online school talk about this particular step, from getting to the point where you can drop in a down stem on a 45 or in the side of something and not have it crack. A lot of people get stuck right there. Just apply more heat, soft bushy flame. Make sure you heat it up before, make the seal, and heat it up after.
Right, you want to keep that heat base nice and good. And of course, now that this has sat in the kiln with the bridge on it, you can bring it back out, work that seal in using that Lynx hand torch. Haven't seen that out in a little bit.
No, I'm glad I get a chance to use that thing. It sits there, and really I only use it on big pieces or complicated seals or something like that.
Totally, but it's nice to have, when you want to move something around, help use gravity to help work that seal in.
Yep. So now I have the down stem joint ready to go. I'm gonna see what that looks like.
Yeah, you've got that joint section in the kiln. Gonna let it sit there for about 10 minutes or so, and you gotta plug the joint so that you can actually make the seal to the rest of the piece.
Yeah, totally. So just grabbed a factory 14 mil male joint, and I'm going to heat it up so that it's close to the same temperature as the stuff that I'm pulling out of the kiln, because as you guys know, different glasses have a different coefficient of expansion, and what that literally means is they are contracting and heating at different rates, and that's why I have to put them in at the same temperature. Otherwise, it's likely they could get stuck together.
Totally. If you put a cold joint into the warm joint, it's going to expand just a tiny bit, and then not want to come back out.
Yep, exactly.
So you got that 10,000 in there again, 10,000 stainless steel in there again, and this is our original idea, how you were thinking to attach to that piece, but I don't think that little punty connection is going to work.
No, I didn't. I think we tried it, and it's not gonna work. It's not stable enough. So we're gonna have to try to do something else.
So just clean up that little punty mark there from it, and back to the bridge.
Yep.
That's kind of what you have to do sometimes, right? You try one thing, and you're like, it was a good idea, but just didn't end up working. So
yeah, the freedom to experiment and giving yourself permission to fail, and giving yourself permission to learn from that. I mean, it's that's really all you can ask for, and that's going to help you progress so much.
The joint is stuck in there quite well, so you figured that would be safe enough to pull that blow tube off there, clean that up. You got to be real careful. You don't want to be applying torque or anything like that to that.
I mean, to be honest, it's a pretty sketchy situation. I have a closed tube with a joint on it that's from a ground to just glass, and I'm trying to pick out a hole in a vacuum. it's not
Not ideal.
not an ideal situation.
You made it work though. Pulled out there with your tweezers, and you pull the open tube into that cone.
Yeah.
So when you break it, it breaks off and opens the hole up.
And at any time, it could like collapse if I got it too hot, fall off the joint, and break on the floor.
Yeah.
So this is. Sometimes you just gotta find the way that you do it, and you have to take a certain amount of risk, right? Like I could make another one if I had to. I'd lose some time, so I had to gauge whether this was going to be a good risk or not. But we'll see if it is.
It worked out. It got in the kiln at least.
Got on the kiln. Next, it has to get on the piece.
So now we're over here at the lathe, and you're gonna make some prep to make some horns that you're gonna pull out, some solid horns.
Yeah. So I had this black Vac-Stack tubing that's probably like over 5 years old, and just a piece that I never used. But for this piece we need some rod, so what I'm going to do is try to fill the tubing with about a 15 millimeter rod and see how that works, see if I can vacuum out the air and then make a huge stack of solid black rod.
Totally. So straightening that up first so that it will line up with that rod, and this is amazing. We were both amazed.
Yep, it fit pretty perfectly.
That's a nice straight Vac-Stack you got there, Dustin. Very nice.
Thank you. Yeah,
very nice.
It was straight enough to get that rod in there.
And it slid in with very little space, I would say.
Yeah.
There's maybe a millimeter at most of extra space around it.
On the right end, and on the left end it's much tighter. Like it went right up to the end, I think, or within
right.
Yeah, like a few millimeters. So now I'm going to seal this on there. I'm going to evacuate the air from the blow tube connected to the left side through the headstock of the lathe.
And you're really going to focus on this area where the black tubing is meeting the rod at first, because that's a spot that is rife with potential places for creases or a little fold over that traps a bubble of air that might break the whole thing off. So really focusing your heat there, getting that all nice and really melty, all one piece of glass.
Yeah, and really making sure that you evacuate the air. As Kevin's saying, you heat it up and it pulls down and just squeezes that air out along the way. That's really critical if you're going to be making this particular technique. You can't trap air in there, otherwise you will break your stuff.
And you can see the Bunsen still on there on the rest of the tubing further down to keep it warm until you get down to that section.
Yep, and then I'll be able to take it off and stretch out my horns from there.
Just working your way down, and this is when it's nice to have a nice big torch like this on your lathe.
I love this Delta Elite. This is one of my other favorite tools, for sure.
Very fun.
Yeah. That foot switch or thumb switch.
Thumb switch, clutch.
So nice.
You don't hit that foot switch, you'll be stopping the lathe. So just paddling the end there like you did on the other side, and you're going to pull this end off. So not as worried about that connection to the
now I have
clear.
A big punny handle, and I can attach something to the other side. But I don't want this on the blow tube anymore.
Slowly starting to pull with the tailstock as that heat goes in there. Gets all the way to the center of that glass. You don't want to pull too soon and create a bunch of stress in the end there.
Yeah, and I want to make sure that I leave a nice round area for me to attach and not pull off too much glass. So you want to take it slow, because rod is completely solid. So even if you heat up a narrow area, that still can stretch out quite a bit. So you want to make sure to pull just a little bit, stretch it, and then use a bigger flame or a wider area on the part that's stretching, because you don't want too much.
Right. It's always kind of fun how the lathe curls that tail around too. I like that. Just you want to clean that up as well. Don't leave that sitting there in your lathe, because that can be kind of pointy.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to heat that up as soon as you can, or take it out of the lathe and throw it away.
Just get those guys in the kiln. And now you can get that joint back out there, and you've transferred this to a blast shield ground joint holder.
Even more sketchy.
I like it. Still got that 1/10,000 stainless steel in there, and you did a lot of preheating on that graphite.
Yes, I heated the graphite up, put it in, because that graphite's just gonna take the heat right out of that piece and cause cracking. So we were looking at this, and this doesn't really fit the way that we wanted. It doesn't really look that great. So what we're gonna do is remove some of this. So I wanted to seal up that hole so I can rebend this and see if I can't get that to be a little bit more in line with the design that I'm going for. It just didn't feel right for me.
Right, so you're going to kind of heat right near where that hole is, which is why you needed to close it up so you can get that bend nice there. And, we'll hold this up and see how it looks, but you're open to everything at this point. Pulling it off, pulling some off, kind of going with a different joint design. You got to be flexible, like we've said.
Yeah, totally. So let's see what this looks like.
Decent? What do you think?
I just think that tail on the end doesn't fit with it.
Right, especially, with what became the dabber still on the bottom as well. It really wasn't flowing right.
Yeah, maybe just take off the end and I don't know, attach it like straight on as opposed to a side seal.
We'll see how
like
that
a curved
looks.
straight seal or something.
So you're gonna, think about where you're gonna pull it off there. Got that heat in there, and just going in, and just clean that up with your tweezers.
Pull that off and then blow a hole in there. That's another risky move, blowing through the joint holder. I don't know if you guys ever watched our bloopers video, but you should. And while you're doing that, why don't you watch it at half speed?
So you can see that looks a lot better there with that straight seal, like you said. It's going to match right up with the perk. So you're just going to kind of clean this up. You get a little bit too much glass left on the end there for a nice connection.
Yeah, let's heat that up, pull a little bit off, and I think we're getting closer to a shape that's going to work.
Right, and of course, all these moves on this blast shield joint holder, you're going to be very careful to be mindful of any shifting, right? If it shifts at all, you want to be right in there, getting it back on tight. Yeah. And of course, that graphite's also stealing heat very readily from that joint.
Yeah, we have a whole bunch of situations going on here, and we just got to be careful and take each step slow, make sure that we're putting the piece in the kiln and any components in the kiln, making sure that they're all properly heated up and ready for connection.
So just going to pop a hole in the end here before you pop everything in the kiln, since that looked very good.
Yeah, I think it's going to fit okay.
Met your expectations here.
And I'm still loving this GTT yellow jacket.
I know, it's been beating the Smith out all the time here. Pretty cool.
Huh? Sorry, Mr. Smith.
I know, that's how it goes. Plus it matches the Delta Mag. That always helps. We used all 3 matching torches this video.
Thank you, Lou Swan.
It's a rarity. I don't think I've seen all 3 broken out in a while.
No, not in a video.
So while those come up to temp in the kiln, let those sit for at least 15, 20 minutes before we get into that. Start working on some horns. So you just took that big section and broke it down into some little blanks to work with.
Yeah, so you can see the clear through the center of that. And what's great about this is that it's not solid black, so it's not going to get weird scuzz on it because there's a layer of clear, and it's not too expensive because it's really just a thin layer of black with clear on the inside and outside.
Right, and you're going to be able to pull these chunks down into multiple horns per chunk too. And
because the black is a dense color, the transparency of it is not really going to be a factor.
Right, they still look black, right? They don't look like gray horns or anything like that.
Exactly.
And this is jet black.
Yeah, jet black backstack.
You can see the lines there when it's hot. I'm always amazed at how much they disappear, right?
Yeah, jet black lines disappear in a backstack. It's really cool. It's better if you twist it though, right? Especially if you're making discs or sections. And we did that in the piece, so yeah, that's pretty important.
So originally you were thinking maybe some nice long flowy horns. So you kind of drew out one that was the size you wanted, and you're going to kind of try and pull out to that size, which is something a lot of people do. They'll draw out something they want to match. Maybe they'll draw the piece and show where they want to make something between it. Yeah,
I mean, if you guys had a chance to check out that Sue's workshop, it's one of the techniques that she did, and in fact, I would kind of give it to Suze and say using a piece of wood might be better than a whiteboard.
Totally.
In this case.
So you're going to go in there and, they didn't kind of fit with what you were feeling for the piece.
Again, no.
So switching it up, going for the wiggly horns.
Yeah, I think that this is going to be a little funner and a little more fluid and organic. So let's see what happens here.
So you got a nice little S-bend. And these are all about getting a nice heat base, making sure both sides of the tubing are nice and warm all the way through. And that'll keep any stress from happening, any scuzz from showing up on the inside of the bends, especially.
Yeah, and also making sure that you don't have kinks in your flow. If you're making a curve, it has to be really smooth, not kinky or
you don't
folded
want
on itself or something.
No angles in there, only smooth surfaces. Like if you pretend like a little snowboarder's going down it, right? They should be able to slide around every corner.
Yep.
So heating up the end there, pulled your first big punty off, and you're going to thin this out so it kind of comes to a little bit thicker base.
Oh, look there, I was just showing you guys really fast, and then I'll put it back on.
Just, that happens sometimes, right? It swings away. Go back in, heat that up, and you want a nice hot seal.
Yeah, you got to be ready, ready to catch the hot glass, and especially when I'm working on pulling and putting torque on such a small point.
Totally, off axis, really just pulling perpendicular to that punty connection almost.
Yeah, so I'm just heating this up and stretching out each part of the horn and making sure that I'm keeping the thickness tapering from thinnest to thickest.
And, really looking at right on eye level there so you can get that taper down. Letting that heat kind of cool off a little bit before you pull. And that'll keep it from getting too saucy on you.
So I'm going to take off this excess glass, and then I'll be able to make this into a point that I can connect nicely onto the piece.
And probably pull it off right at the top there, and I think that'll probably be the biggest horn for the piece.
Yeah. Let's see how this looks.
Oh yeah, that'll work nice. Nice height, matches the curves of the disc.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, the joint's not on there yet, so you still got more things to add, but yeah, very nice.
Kind of get the idea.
And that can give you an idea of what you want the rest of your horns to look like, right? Now that you know where one's going to go, thinking about how to fill the piece out, how you want the horns to interact with each other, with the lines of the piece. So you just got another section of black out here. I'm going to heat this guy up and do the same thing here.
Yeah, so we're going to heat it up and make another horn. And there's even a video that we did specifically on horn making back early in the season. I think we did a few different kinds of horns. But it's something that I think came into popularity 2006 to 2008-ish. Mm-hmm. And then a lot of glassblowers started to add horns onto their pieces.
As you got all these other colors available, it was a great opportunity to show them off. Getting more things in rod, more things in tubing. And you saw you blowing on the glass there a little bit before you pulled.
Really didn't do anything, probably.
It's nice to think, though, right?
Right.
Just, it might do just a little bit, right?
It might
help it start to cool off.
Yeah, no, it definitely does, right? Because everything has a reaction. So definitely it's going to do something, but really
Whoa, that was a dangerous one, Dustin.
That one
there.
too.
That was quite a catch. That was lucky that glass held on there. But you saved it, no problem. It's just everything's popping off from punties left and right, That's what you got to deal with sometimes.
Yeah, maybe it's really late at night and I'm putting high torque on pieces.
We're many hours into this piece, quite a few filming sessions, We're getting closer to the finish line, so the excitement is building too.
Yeah. So I'm going to pull this off and then get ready to attach this one as well.
You see, pulling real slow there, almost like you would on the lathe, right? Really focusing that heat just where the glass is hot to avoid pulling off too much extra.
Yeah, I think that using a lathe has improved my hand skills because you get to see really how straight it is and how things should be spinning. And if you get a chance, you guys should use a lathe and definitely check out the Sue's class on the lathe.
That was a lot of fun. It was great having her here this past weekend. It was so fun to see her teach, and she is an awesome teacher. She imparted so much knowledge on the lathe. We had a lot of quite a few lathe veterans in the class even, and they said they loved it too.
Yeah, it was really great to see Suze again and hang out. It felt like old times. If you guys want to check out that workshop or any of the others, go to the website revereglass.com, and it's been a lot of fun.
Those are always a good time. Get the live streams going. You just got those both nice and hot. Nice straight seal there. Roll it on. Well, not really a straight seal. I guess that's a ring seal.
It's a side ring seal.
There you go.
Yep.
So got that on there well enough, and now you're gonna start to kind of heat that in, and of course line your joint up with the rest of the piece.
Yeah, trying to kind of look at it, and it's still a little bit hot, so I can center it a little bit. And you don't want to do too much of this. It doesn't have to be perfect at this stage, because once you melt it in a little bit, you can adjust it. But that seal initially is really tricky, so I'm going to add a little bridge, and that way it gives a little bit more strength and allows me to melt that seal in without the top moving around.
Totally. Get some stability in there, and then you can really go in and work that seal without worrying about everything flopping around.
Totally. And it looks like I tagged the piece just a little bit there, so I'll melt that in, and that'll just, melt into the surface of the piece, and you won't be able to see that later.
Such a tiny bleb, you won't even be able to tell.
Yeah.
And now that that bridge is in there and has cooled just enough, you can really start working that seal, and you want to go right back into it.
Blowing just a little bit to kind of get it to cool for just a second more. Thanks, Kevin.
Yeah, keep that guy managed over there. Don't want it burn anything on the bench. Happy to be the human torch holder for a minute. And, just working your way around that seal. Not heating the whole thing up, just working your way around.
Yeah, totally. So I'm heating up a little bit at a time in quadrants. I'm going from one side, then to the opposite side, and then switching the sides again to make it in 4 quadrants, which is going to help keep the stability. Even though it's bridged up right there, still I'm trying to be as careful as possible with this tiny connection on a big piece.
And blocking the joint there with that blast shield holder and kind of putting it against your shirt there to block some air so you can puff into that a little bit.
Yep.
Now you got that back in the kiln while you let that come up to temp. Some more horns.
All right, so this time I'm going to pull a horn and keep it tapered thinnest to thickest.
Something like this, it's a lot of this kind of prepping up pieces, right?
Yep.
And, you could prep all these up at the beginning if you know what size they're all going to be, but since you were kind of working in the flow, you're just taking your kiln breaks, right? Making the most of your time.
Yep. Yeah, so I'm making these as the piece is in the kiln. I'm working on the horns because it's like Kevin's saying, 10-15 minutes in the kiln between each steps gives me a lot of downtime. So what a lot of people end up doing when they're working on pieces with so many steps is they have 2 going at the same time, and that's why that Scut Scarab regular size is like the perfect kiln for somebody who's doing heavy production on this scale. You can have 2 things going and there's still enough room to put everything together, and then you can continually work.
Totally. I mean, we had this going and we weren't even close to filling this up with all these horns and stuff. You could have fit, like you said, a whole nother upline in here.
Yep.
So you get that horn in there, kind of checking out your stock, and kind of pull this guy out so that you can get your blow tube down below your bench surface for this seal.
Yeah, this is a really great reason to have the rail, so that I can hold the blow tube under the bench to really work the seal in the place that I want, as opposed to compromising the position that I want the piece in.
Right, or trying to, get your flame really hot and far out there from the bench, something like that.
So heat up both sides. You want the horn much hotter than the can, because you don't want to indent the can, but you still want the can to be hot enough to receive the horn.
Right, and really focusing that heat on the can just where the horn's going to go, so you can get that nice seal all the way around.
Yeah, and being really careful with your flame at this point, because if my flame touches the neck of the piece, it could cause pretty big cracks and damage.
Yeah, that neck is very cold, it was almost out of the kiln, so focusing that heat only on the can area, and of course mini torching this horn in all the way around.
Yeah, I want to be really good on this seal, and all the seals that you ever make, but it kind of compounds on a piece this size, because there's so many seals. You got to really make sure that each one is done properly so that you don't have any cracking later on in the piece. And honestly, oftentimes on pieces like this, there is going to be a crack that you're going to need to fix, and that's just something that will happen, so don't freak out and go ahead and put it back together.
Right. On this piece, we were probably more careful with our kilning than on some of the other pieces we've been working on for the other demos, right?
Absolutely.
And we got away with no cracks on this one.
Unbelievably.
Pretty crazy.
One burn, no cracks.
Yeah, there we go. We traded it out.
Yeah.
How's it doing there?
It's good. I'm basically ready to go.
Oh, yeah. I can, from 20 feet away, you probably can't even see it anymore.
No.
10 feet away.
Yep.
Nice. And that's, what is this, month and a half?
So, yeah, about a month and a half. But it's healed now. Like, it's not
right.
stretchy.
Can't even feel it.
Yeah.
Nice. Going back in for another one.
Yeah, I think that as the horns get added on, the shape really starts to take form, and there's just a whole life that gets added to the piece at that point.
Right, and you kind of you really want to look at how they flow, how they fill the space, between horns. And of course, with all of them riding on the mini torch.
Yes, and being really careful not to hit any part of the piece but the part that I'm actually trying to work on.
Even, on the hot sections, right, flashing that mini torch flame across the downstem or something could be dicey.
Yeah, absolutely. It's already dicey enough.
So once that's melted in there, no acute angles, no stress to be seen. Little reposition while it's still warm. And of course, back in the kiln.
All right, put that in there.
Close her up. And you're being nice and gentle. These horns are pretty thin on the top, and you decided to go unbridged since they had nice thick bases.
Yeah, unbridged, and you can make that choice along the way, and certainly bridges add more stability. But let's see if we can fit another horn here and here, and
maybe shorten that one that's sticking out, something like that. Yeah, maybe rebend it. We'll see how it looks.
Yeah, but I think that you're right. They need something there.
And we are on the live stream this Friday, or on the Discord, this Friday, hanging out with some people in the studio, seeing what they're up to.
Yeah, it's been fun. I've been turning it on when I'm in the studio. Sometimes when I'm making the demos for the school, I'll just turn it on, check in with you guys, see what you're up to.
So there you go. Bent that in a little bit more towards the piece, and didn't meet the specifications, so it's coming off.
No, I just think we need to shorten it. But that made it in the bucket.
That was a nice toss.
Yeah.
It's a nice toss.
And I'm just going to take that off and get that piece to really, sink in and sit with the piece. I feel like that sticking out too was just like not in flow with the lines of the piece.
Really want to bring that back to the nice taper as well.
Yeah.
Kind of now that you've pulled the horn off, you want to bring the flow back to it.
Yep, and being really careful as you put it in the kiln, out of the kiln.
Yep, don't hit those horns on the doors.
Yep.
So just cleaning up the end of this next horn you're going to put on. Shaped up a couple more here. And once again, using your kiln brakes to make some prep. And you got horns of all sizes here, including some little tiny ones, that help fill out the space.
Yeah, and it's good to make extra horns too. So you can choose. You don't want to be forced into the wrong horn situation.
Right. Have an alternate.
Yeah.
And it is nice to have somebody else in the studio who can pop that kiln door closed for you when you're trying to juggle this piece that is hot and you don't want to have out the kiln for too long.
So heat it up, attach that, kind of push it in position.
Seal it out to the side a little bit, and then you can bend it in a little bit there. And then you'll pull that punty off and get to the mini torching.
So I'm just going to pull and taper that a little bit. Make sure I finish that taper.
And this same idea applies for any attachment you're going to be doing. Horns, marbles, faceted attachments, anything you'd like. You really want to work all the seals in for them. Think about how they all work together on the piece and be ready to switch it up.
Yeah, totally. I think there's something to be said for like drawing it out too. And, that is the traditional way to make something like this, and look at each piece, see how they fit together. But also it's fun to just freestyle, so it's good to practice both.
And that way, if something breaks on something that's all planned out, you have an alternative ready maybe, or an idea of where else you might go.
Exactly. So it's time to make the joint, the male joint. We're going to use a little bit of that same vac stack tubing that we were using for the horns and blow it in and make a male joint. I'm not sure we showed you this on a finished piece yet.
So this is a non-solid section of the black vac stack there, still hollow inside. And you kind of pre-shaped it to roughly the size you're going to need for a 14mm male joint.
Yeah, and there's my joint tool, so I'm going to see if that fits or if I need to taper it down a little bit.
A little bit more taper needed so it'll fit all the way in there. And you're going to thin down more than you're going to need so that you can really get it seated all the way into the bottom of that joint holder.
Yeah, and you got to get it real hot when you do this. It's going to cool immediately as soon as it touches that wall, and it's got to be relatively thin, so it's definitely a fast move.
Right, that graphite's stealing the heat even with a preheat. It is quite a heat thief.
Yes, graphite the heat thief.
So you're really going to crank this torch up a little bit on the Mirage flame there, get the front end nice and hot, and stick it in and blow.
Blow real hard.
And then you hold that air pressure in.
Yep.
You're holding it the whole time until it cools.
Yep.
And then you can see it's almost tight in there when you pull it out.
Yeah, so after this, you want to do a couple of tests and see if it fits right. You need to adjust it, maybe blow it out one more time and see what happens.
Work any stress out of the surface of the glass there as well, too.
Yeah.
You know, it was close. You're definitely getting there, but this is a multi-step process for this one. So go in, once again, another puff, and that's going to ensure it's all the way to all the corners, you know, and that'll prevent any wiggle wobble.
Yep, very, very cool. Now we're going to be able to saw this off. And then you'll be able to see the thickness and make sure you got what you wanted, and then attach it to your piece.
So for now, we'll just put that in the kiln, and we'll anneal that overnight.
Exactly.
So now it's back to the piece since it's been sitting in the kiln there. Slide that guy out and grab one of the smaller horns. That one?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, that'll work.
Yeah, let's clean off the piece.
Yeah, want to make sure there's no kiln dust on there. That would be a real bummer. Getting something like that burned on after all this time. And heating up both sides and going in. And you mentioned this earlier, but you don't want to dent the can. If you heat the can too much when you stick it, it can kind of interrupt the flow of the egg shape or whatever shape you have.
Absolutely. So let's attach this horn and see what we're looking like. There might even be room for a couple more.
I think so. You can see the lower area on the back there. Got some room.
Just pull that off and make sure I get that taper again. You can use a smaller 3mm rod just to pull that to the right size and shape that you want.
And even, of course, your lynx flame too. You got to be careful where it's going.
Oh,
and
yeah.
That takes a lot of practice, right? Knowing where to put your elbow, where to put your arm to get the glass to flow where you want.
Yep.
If you can't put it where you're used to putting it because there's something behind it that's going to crack.
Yeah, and using gravity and bracing against your body or the table really helps. You just got to pay attention to what the move is that you're trying to do in the moment.
And if you're not used to making large pieces like this, you really got to pace yourself. Because if you get in the flow and you get excited and you work for 5 or 6 hours on a piece this large and you're not used to it, you're really going to be feeling it the next couple days.
Oh yeah. And take it slow. Just like Kevin's saying, this, you're doing this for yourself. You're doing it for the enjoyment. So, enjoy each part of the process.
And little sunscreen on if you're out there with the torch all day. No, that one looks like it might have fit, but
not quite right.
No, not quite right. That one? Oh, much better. That fits the spot you're looking to fill.
Oh yeah, I think that's the one that's going to go there.
And it's like you said, having extras.
Yeah. We might end up using it, for another spot.
Right. You never know. So we're going to heat that up, stick it on, a little push-pull. We're all pointing at things. Who knows what's going where?
Yeah, we're just trying to get this thing in the kiln without cracking.
And it's funny, when you looked at something like this for so long, right? You can kind of be like, oh man, is this where I want it?
Yeah.
That is one of the special good advantage of drawing things out beforehand, right? You kind of have the final vision of what you're headed towards.
Yep. I've been using the app Procreate a little bit lately, and I put this screen on the iPad that makes it feel more like paper. And that's kind of a good, if you guys have an iPad, that way you don't have to have a backpack full of different sketches.
Totally, and you can send them to people real easily, see what they think of them. Pull off that one there. That was one of the little bit larger horns, and now it's ready for use as a nice little small one. Let everything come up to temp in the kiln there. Of course, you don't want to rush it at this point, right? It's better to take 15 minutes, go grab a drink of water, something like that, stretch your legs, come back, rather than, be like, oh, I'm excited, let's pull it out. It's only been 7 minutes, it's probably okay. It's probably not okay.
It's not okay.
We've seen that happen before a time or two, haven't we?
It just gets so exciting at these stages, right? You just want to keep going, especially for me. Like, these are some of the most exciting stages of blowing glass. I have this really big hot thing that I've been working on for a long time, and definitely gets the adrenaline.
It's like, oh, that was a small horn, I can do another horn. It'll be fine. No,
don't.
No, it won't be.
I can tell you from my experience of trying to bend or break those rules,
it's fine until it's not.
Yeah, it's not worth it.
So there we go. I think that's all the horns, Dustin.
Well, you know what that means? We are towards the final little construction of this piece, and we have to make the bowl. So that's what we're going to do now, is finish up the bowl for this piece. And you guys are welcome to use this for flour or for oil. We're including a flour bowl for you guys, but the perk is somewhat convertible.
Yeah, absolutely versatile there.
Yeah.
So you're on your wet saw there.
And it's a little broken, you guys. It shouldn't be wobbling like that, but I'm missing a stabilization wheel, and we're working on fixing it.
Totally, but it's definitely cutting good enough to make it work there. Just may need a little more polishing up with that vibration of the wheel. And
this is a really cool tool. It's the Genie multi-wheel lapidary polishing setup. So each one of these wheels gets finer and finer. The one on the far left will really take down a lot of glass or material fast, and as I move more and more to the right, they get finer and finer, and I'm able to put on a really nice polish.
And adding just a little, taper to the end of the joint there, almost a chamfer.
Yeah, a little bevel so that it doesn't chip or anything, but just taking off the edge, just taking the edge off.
And it's cool that Gemini has those little water squirters to keep the water on the wheels, because you always want to be wet polishing with glass.
Oh yeah, you'll create a lot of dust, which will be bad for your lungs and bad for the glass and bad for the saw.
Got a much, infinitely cleaner finish with wet. And so you see there that vibration caused that blow tube to break off there.
Yeah, so we can just polish this on the polishing wheels here, but you could also use a flat on this as well. I gotta keep moving it to make sure that I get it to the right level down, remove the clear. And with these wheels and the size of what I'm trying to polish, it's not ideal, but it'll certainly get the job done.
Right. It'd be better on a flat lap or something like that.
So.
That would keep it nice and flat, and you just need to be more mindful with these.
Yeah.
But there you go. And once it's all filled with water, you don't want to just put it right back in the kiln.
Oh no.
That could be bad with something like this.
Yeah. So we're going to fill it with alcohol, and that's going to help all the water evaporate before I put it back into the kiln.
Right, rinses, essentially the alcohol rinses the water out, and then alcohol evaporates much faster.
Yeah, and then I wiped the whole outside with alcohol as well.
Yep, because any water there, it could create a little steam, it could create a little pocket of air that could crack the piece, and that'd be a bummer. So you let that male joint that you cut off on the saw come up to temperature in the kiln after you rinsed it as well, and now it's ready to go into that joint holder and get attached to the rest of the bowl.
I am really trying to get that right to the point before it's going to deform, because I wanted to hold that heat in there while it's being encased in that joint holder, because it's really going to take that heat away.
Right, and it was almost a little bit too hot that time.
It was really hot.
It deformed a little bit when you put it in there, so you're going to pull it out, reshape it, and there's a nice thing about using the joint holder as a holder.
Yep.
It's going to keep the joint in the right shape.
Yeah, yep, absolutely.
So there we go. That's a better seal in there. It feels like it's going to hold nicely now.
Yep. So I pulled on it, and I'm able to put a little bit of force on it. So if I can put enough force for it to be held in a joint forming tool, I know that I have the right shape, because that's not an easy thing to make it not slide out with a blown male joint like that.
Right. It needs to be properly sealed up in there.
So let's open that up, and then we'll be able to attach a little more color to the top of this.
And the look you're going to go for on this one is a really kind of just the joint itself being the black tubing. So you're going to snip that off really low profile to the joint holder.
Yep, exactly. And there'll be a little color transition there, but yeah, I like that look, the Encalmo look from on the joint, and it also matches the piece.
And once pushing it with your shears there, even making sure it's seated nice still.
Yep, exactly.
So grab a little wigwag ball you had prepped up, and this is going to be perfect for the top of the bowl.
Yeah, so we're going to attach that on, and then I'll be able to melt it all in and smooth, and hopefully put a little bit of air in there and push the bowl.
Yep, this is a real classic, push bowl style.
Yeah.
Nice straight seal on there. Pop that punty off, and you want to clean up that end. You got a little bit of clear left. Don't want that. You will be opening a hole, of course, but still, it's good practice.
Oh yeah, and this is fun. This, I think that I really like making the large scale construction, and then when that's kind of done, making these little components it's kind of like the after you run, it's the wind down, for the piece.
Little dessert.
Yeah.
So like you mentioned, being very careful when you blow in there, and you've got that well over your your pad there in case it pops out. You at least will get to save the joint.
Hopefully.
So yes, just getting all that heat in there, using gravity to squat that back a little.
Yep.
Pre-shape that bowl shape you're looking for.
Well, that was the riskiest part, that one puff. So
made it past. Safer, maybe a little.
Yeah.
So you're just gonna another little risky one, but there we go.
Okay.
The glass was hot enough. Pop the hole. Good to go.
Yeah, that's the variable of the glass hot and the pressure. You have to balance that out.
And it was actually a little warmer than you wanted, so that's a little too big of a hole for a bowl. So.
And there's a lot of ways to close that up, so I'm just pushing it with the end of the bowl push there.
Just rotating it around. It's a little forming paddle.
Yep.
Make sure it's nice and warm there. And now you can use that same tool to push the bowl.
Here we go.
Rotating as you do to keep it nice and on center.
All right, that's looking good. I think what would be cool is if we attached a little horn to this thing, so that kind of match the piece a little bit.
And very functional. It's always nice to have a handle, especially on a hollow bowl like this. They get pretty toasty.
All right, so let's put something on here.
Pink slime, I believe.
Match the piece.
You just get, in this case, you just took a look at the bench. We're like, all right, we got some pinks, some blues.
Yeah. We want to do something more than just the push bowl.
So just putting some dots on there. They're very classic for you. I've seen this on quite a few of your spoons as well.
The old 3 dots descending biggest to smallest. That's me. If there's ever a piece that has that on it, it was me. Just kidding, you guys.
That's a classic.
I like to do it, but so do other people too. Yeah.
And then you got a nice little what could have been a scrap.
Yeah.
But no.
This was the very last piece of black, I think.
We were like, do we have any more? Oh, wait. Just big enough.
Just big enough. Super little horn.
Stick that guy on there. And it's just like putting the horn on the piece itself, right?
Yep.
Going in with the mini torch, working your way around, not heating the whole seal up at once so you don't lose the structure, get it flopping around, but get it fully sealed.
Yeah, this is fun. This reminds me of the work that I used to make 2010, 11, 12, something like that.
When we first started doing the original videos, these were kind of what you were making at the time.
Yeah, I remember we filmed one really early on. It's actually, part of it is in the promo video on the channel, and that piece ended up cracking. That one didn't make it.
That one was probably the saddest cracking I've ever seen. It in fact slid. It was all done.
Yeah, all done.
It was ready to be mouthpieced.
Yeah.
So you had cut it off on the saw, and it was ready to be flame polished. Yep. And it was resting on the rod rack, and the rod rack slipped. As you set it down, it seemed fine.
Yeah.
You turned around to walk away, and it just slid out of the kiln onto the ground. And I think you just kind of turned around and looked at it, like swept it into a pile, and then just went home. You're just like, I just gotta go.
Yeah.
It's like, not gonna work on anything else today.
I mean, better to go home and chill out than to just
be
upset.
It happens, right? Yeah. AGB, but it's still not fun.
All glass breaks. So we're gonna bend the neck here for you guys. I think that a little kickback is gonna be nice on this piece, and so I'm using a really soft flame here and just trying to heat up a wide area, and then let gravity do a lot of this work with just kind of a little bit of influence by me.
Right, using that really, really soaking heat there, nice and soft. Perfect time to kick on the Herbie.
Oh yeah, this would be good for the Herbie. Sometimes I think about moving it next to mine so I can go back and forth,
So just letting that, like you mentioned, bend with gravity there. Yeah. Real subtle bend. And just a little help from the tweezers to make sure it stays on center.
Yep, exactly.
Boom, and then there we go. Polish that mouthpiece. And then, of course, you're going to want to go into that neck once it cools and make sure there's no stress in there.
Absolutely, yeah. Back in there a little bit, make sure there's no stress. Open up the mouthpiece fully with the large tapered reamer.
And that meets your specifications.
It passes.
So you can go in and just work out any stress. There's a little bit on the inside of that bend.
Yep. You can see me looking above my glasses in there. I'm looking at the stress in the piece, not when I'm burning it, not where the flame is touching or anything, but I'm looking to see if there's any lines.
Boom, there it is. It's done.
That's what? That's for one of you guys.
That's pretty cool.
Yep.
Drop a comment on this video, and of course we're going to pick between all 3 videos that we put up for this piece, and we'll send it out to one of you guys.
Put some awesome comments down, you guys. We're going to literally send this piece out to one of you guys free of charge. You don't even have to pay for shipping.
So it'll show up one day. You'll be like, oh my gosh, look at this.
You can see the whole piece there and the wigwags, and you can kind of see now how everything's come together. The bowl and the can, the horns. And
you really filled up the space on the piece with the horns. They flow nicely. They're not too crowded. They flow with the donut, the wigwag disc. Very cool.
It was so fun to make, but I think really one of the things, and I really don't want to understate this, is that the display is really good for this piece, and it holds it nicely. It presents the piece and makes that the focal point, and which is exactly the kind of stand that it needed. And you guys are getting that stand that Kevin made too.
It's a collab, boys. Yeah,
I
appreciate that. It was fun to do. And drop a comment below, and we'll see you in season 3.
Welcome back, you guys. Thank you so much for joining us for this piece. I hope that you learned a trick or something you could use in your own work. It was absolutely amazing and fun to finally make something a little bit larger for you guys on YouTube.
Kind of tie all the different techniques we've done together and show you how it all goes together. Sorry we didn't show you how I made the little stand, but maybe next time.
Maybe next time. And the stand really, like we said in the previous video, I really think it completes the piece. I mean, it was designed for a minimalistic stand. Kevin just killed it. And you, of course, get the stand too. You get the piece, the stand, and everything.
Definitely send us some pics once it shows up.
You got to send us pics and put it on Instagram, tag Revere Glass School or On the Torch. We'll see it.
Guess what, Dustin?
Questions?
Questions. First up here from It's Just Pictures of My Dog. How large a vent hood would you recommend for a GTT Mirage?
Yeah. I would say it's less about the particular torch than just your space. And I mean, the common design that I use is a 3x3x3, and it's basically a cube that's cut diagonally, and that's the
hole in the top for the fan.
10-inch hole in the top and 10-inch ducting. You're really looking for a CFM per station, and that would be about 800 to 1,000 is my recommendation. But you can get a grow vent hood would work, or have a metal fab guy locally make you something. But yeah, 3x3 is what I use in my studio.
Pretty solid size.
Yeah.
Next up here from Mobius Prolix, is there a specific Blowhose swivel size and material, brass or something else, that you use for small stuff versus larger stuff, or is there just one you use all the time?
There is a specific size. There's 2 specific sizes. There's a 1/4 and 3/8. The 3/8 is a little bit larger, and that's used on the lathe or sometimes in larger pieces. And the 1/4 inch is used on smaller pieces. And then there's 2 different kinds of materials as well that I've seen. One is brass and the other is stainless steel. I personally really like the stainless steel ones. They're all that I buy because the brass ones get stuck.
The brass kind of gets hot and kind of gets easier to deform it, something like that. So
yeah, I think the build quality is just better on the stainless steel ones. I mean, they're probably 4 times as much, but they will last forever.
Totally. Yeah. Totally. Very nice. Last question here, kind of a 2-parter from Lamplighter Glass. How long can a piece be out of the kiln or the flame while you're working on it? And what technique do you employ to maintain an even heat over a larger sculpture like this?
Well, I'm going to answer the second part first because it kind of answers the first one in a sense too. When I'm working on a piece this big with multiple sections, I actually very rarely would heat up the whole thing. I've never heated up the whole thing when working on a piece like this. I heat up little sections and then put that back in the kiln. But if I was working on the lathe and I had maybe a straight tube or something with a lot of complex sections, in that case, I may be keeping a lot of the piece warm under Bunsen's. But working on the bench by hand, I wouldn't try to heat up this kind of piece. It would crack for sure.
Totally. So you're either going to heat the bottom and the top is cold enough to hold.
Yep.
Or heat the mouthpiece and then you're holding it from the bottom like you were when you were finishing it off.
Exactly. And then just go into little sections with your mini torch or your smaller torch, you have to be really careful when you're constructing this size. Things will crack. So you got to be really careful to be precise with your heat.
And of course, don't, got to keep your heat off of the cold area. You can't accidentally flash the cold portion, because that's going to be bad news.
Really bad news. So don't flash the cold portion, and just heat it up in sections. Basically, if you want to heat up the whole thing or have a really important reason to heat up the whole thing, you need a bunch of Bunsen burners, basically. Heating it up till past Bunsen temperature all at once, it's just going to slump and fall all over the place.
Totally.
Yeah.
And for the amount of time you would work the section you're working on in the flame, I mean, it's kind of depends on how much heat you're putting into it, right? If you're doing a small seal, you may just do that one seal and put it back in the kiln.
Yeah, so the key with that, with how long you can keep it out of the kiln, long enough to do one move and at efficient pace. So once you do that move at an efficient pace, get it back into the kiln for 10-15 minutes, and then do another move on pieces that are this large and complicated or more.
Right. Some of the smaller, maybe you push it 2 moves, something like that. But here, 10 hours in or whatever, you don't want to be taking risks like that.
Or on a piece like, let's say, this size, where the flame is a large portion of the piece. Well, I maybe could continue working this piece for a long time, making attachments, because I'm able to heat the whole thing at once, like you suggested.
Totally. You saw us lots of kiln breaks in this one, but it's worth it to, not have to be messing with cracks all the time.
Cool.
And I think that's it for season 2, Dustin.
That's a wrap.
Pretty cool.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you, Dustin.
No, seriously, I love working with you, Kevin, and I was so happy that we got everything together to make another season. And I love that you guys have joined us for this journey, and Mountain Glass have made this possible for us and for you guys. So
yeah, wanted to thank all you in the audience. We couldn't do it without you. You're really why we do this, because we see you guys learning stuff and making stuff, and it's super cool. So we really appreciate it, and thanks for watching.
Yep, sincerely appreciate you guys. We'll see you guys in season 3. We'll have a little bit of content in between, and make sure you guys put some good comments down, because we want to give this away to somebody who deserves it.
Totally. Let us know what you'd like to see in season 3.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.